Hey everybody, it's Mom of Two Wife of One, and it's Thursday, so you know what that means. It means it's time for another review and recap of Married at First Sight. We are on season 13, episode 7. Everyone is back from their honeymoon, and now the real world begins. I normally have my computer next to me with all of my notes, but this time I decided to freestyle a little bit, so we'll see how it goes, shall we? So, like I said, they came back from their honeymoon. They're all living in the same complex in different, units, obviously. And this is something they started a few seasons ago. So, when the show first started, and I still prefer this concept, when the show first started, when the couples came back from their honeymoon, they would go back to their separate apartments, but they would get together and basically figure out how to create a budget, figure out everybody's finances, and they would show them looking for an apartment together. Now, I like that concept a lot better because it makes them deal with finances very early on, and it allows them to kind of make this adult decision together. And so I always just like that part. So, but I guess I kind of understand, like, oh, we're going to put them all in the same place. That way it's neutral territory and they're close to the other couples and blah, blah, blah. So I guess I get it. And I think probably money was a factor as well. I'm sure some of these apartment complexes paid the show to allow them to feature the apartment complex in the show. And so I get it from a business standpoint. But I still prefer when they actually sat down and talked about finances and talked about budget. I thought it was really interesting seeing them have these conversations, especially with someone that they'd only known for about a week. I'm sure that's already awkward to talk about in general, but I like the fact that they showed that. But regardless, they're in a nice apartment and they're home. So let's start with, I don't want to start with the obvious because there was some drama last night. I'll start with, I think, the most boring couple in my head, which is Brett and Ryan. I still like Brett as a person. I feel like I'm getting to know more about Ryan as each episode goes on. I definitely thought he was very boring and quiet and kind of awkward in the beginning. Now I'm getting more of his personality. He's talking a lot more, which I appreciate. And I think they get along. I don't necessarily feel any passion or heat between them, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like they get along very well. She's definitely noticing all the ways that they're different because he's very outdoorsy and he hunts and he does, all of this adventurous stuff, and she's not like that. I like that she's willing to do those things, though. She's not saying she's going to adopt those things as her own personal lifestyle, but she's willing to do it, and I think he acknowledges that she's willing to try, and, they kind of mesh in that way, I guess. There's also the episode where Pastor Cal met up with all the couples, and he did talk to them about intimacy for the most part, and how are they doing with intimacy and where have they come, and they still have not had sex, but they kiss a lot and they're very touchy-feely, lovey-dovey, whatever. So it's leading down that path. But remember, Brett also was the person who hadn't even kissed a guy in the past 2 years, let alone had sex. So I could understand it taking her a little bit more time to be comfortable enough giving her body to this man, even though he is her husband. But for the most part, nothing exciting really happened with them. Nothing mind-blowing. It was like, okay. That's it. Their dogs met. I think her dog was trying to get buck with his dog. And it's like, okay. Again, nothing too terribly important. I did want to talk about one thing I appreciated. This episode, the couples also did visit each other's former homes, former apartments or houses or whatever, to kind of get a glimpse of who their partner is. And I like that in Brett's apartment. It was so colorful and homey. And his was definitely very brown, and it had, the deer head on the walls. I'm not a hunter either, not into dead animals like that. Not that I don't eat dead animals, but that's another story. But I'm not into animals as decor. And to have it in your bedroom, I thought that was kind of weird, but I'm also not a hunter, so maybe that's what hunters do. They like to kind of show it off, I guess. But I like that she was able to see, his apartment is, or his house rather, beautiful house, but it is very manly. It's very masculine. But I like that he even made a comment like her home is a lot more colorful. I think she could probably bring more color to my life. And I like that he saw that and that he appreciated it. Because again, it is a bigger picture. It's not just literally she has a bunch of color in her home. Is that in general, her lifestyle and her personality is very colorful and very bright and very joyous. And she'll be able to bring that to his life while he'll be able to expose her to new things and kind of have her step out of her comfort zone. So I like them together. I think they'll be okay. Again, I don't really sense any passion necessarily, but that's not a bad thing. They do seem to really like each other, though, and have a crush on each other. But I think out of all the couples, they're the ones who don't have these deep conversations at all, or at least not on camera. We see all the other couples delving into intimacy, delving into past relationships and finances and their fears and, childhood tragedies a lot more than we've seen from Brett and Ryan. And I don't know, it's because they're a little more private, I think, so maybe they have those conversations off camera. But I'm hoping that they are having the conversations if they're not, because it makes it seem like they're the only ones who are kind of still staying surface level. And I don't know if it's because they're afraid to delve deeper because they don't want to rock the boat, or if they're just not comfortable with that yet. But I think as time goes on, we'll see them having deeper conversations and really getting to the heart of who each other is. So I'll say that right now, Brett and Ryan are going to stay together just because I have no reason to think that they won't. So now we'll go to Gil and Mirla. Now, one thing I was shocked by. When they went in their new apartment, I was shocked that Mirla didn't complain, or at least she didn't complain on camera. Because when they were on the honeymoon, it seemed like every scene she was complaining about something, complaining about the food, complaining about the room, complaining about the view. So I just assumed they moved into this new apartment that she was going to have a lot of stuff to say, but she liked it, didn't have any complaints, and even Gil was shocked, so I really liked that. I really like Gil as a person. I don't dislike Mirla at all, but I still don't think she was right for this show. For someone like her who is very set with what she wants and very set with how she wants to conduct her life, I feel like she's a person that really needs control. And this show is all about not having control, because you're giving these random experts the reins to pick the person who's supposed to be your life mate, who you're supposed to live with and create a life with for the rest of your life, essentially. And the premise of the show, I think, is still a good show and still work for some people if you are willing to be in that space. I don't think Mirla, she wanted to be married. Like, I don't take that away from her. I think she does want to be somebody's wife. I just don't think this was the right setup for her getting a husband. I don't think being married at first sight was smart for her personality. I think she does like Gil. One thing I really like about Gil is that even though he understands her princessy ways and he sees how much she pampers herself, he has never judged her for that. He has never had it in his mind that, I need to change her and, we got to get rid of that. That's never crossed his mind, which I really appreciate. He seems to accept her for who she is completely and totally, but still standing his own and standing in his own principles and his own morals. So I like Gil. I think Gil is a very strong person. And I really just like him as a person in general. I think he would make a really great husband. Just, again, I don't know if Mirla is the right one for him necessarily. But when Pastor Cal talked to them, Pastor Cal talked about their intimacy. And this part was a little bit funny. He's like, so talk to me about your intimacy. And Gil was like, well, we hold hands. We cuddle before we go to bed. And that's like the climax. That's like the pinnacle. And Pascal was like, that's not the climax. He was like, that is not the goal here. And the fact that, first of all, as an editor / writer, I love the fact that they turned the word cheek into a verb. Because Pascal was like, oh, didn't she cheek you? He's like, she cheeked you at the wedding. He's like, yeah, she's been cheeking me ever since. It's like, okay, because she only allowed him to kiss her on the cheek. Now, one thing I don't know that I'm very curious about, is she kissing him on the cheek as well? Is she kissing his hand? Is she kissing him on the forehead? Or is he the one doing all this kissing even though it's just on the cheek? I'm very curious about that. And here's why that matters. A cheek is a cheek, obviously. But if she is initiating any kind of intimacy with him herself, whether it's holding his hand, rubbing his back, rubbing the back of his neck, rubbing his bald head, kissing him on the cheek, it's letting him know that she desires him. Even if she won't let him kiss her yet, that's showing some kind of initiative that, okay, she likes me. She thinks I'm attractive. She wants me, but she still wants to move slow. And even that little bit, a person will take that little bit and be like, okay, there's hope. And they're able to be a little more patient, knowing that on the other side of this, we're eventually going to kiss and we'll eventually do a few more things. But if she's not doing any of that stuff at all, and she's just allowing him to kiss her, no man or woman wants to be the only one initiating things. Again, it gives the impression that that person doesn't really want you and they're just kind of tolerating you at that point. And Gil told Pastor Cal that, I had a discussion with Mirla and I asked her, do you think that by the end of this whole experiment, by the end of these 8 weeks, that you think it's a possibility that you won't have kissed me at that point. Now, she didn't say for sure if that's what's going to happen. She said it may be a possibility, because her thing is it's all about comfort for me. I need to feel comfortable with you. I need to feel like I'm getting to know you on a deeper level. But if I don't feel that by the 8 weeks, then yeah, I may not kiss you at that point. And he was very honest with her. And they had this discussion off camera, but he told Pastor Kyle, like, we had that discussion. She told me that, and I told her, if we get to decision day and you still haven't kissed me, then I'm going to ask for a divorce. And he didn't say it, at least when he was explaining to Pastor Cal, he didn't say it like he was trying to be petty, like he was trying to be mean, or like he was sulking or anything. It was just very matter of fact, because he made it very clear to her that physical touch is very important to me. It's how I feel loved. It's how I feel desired. And if at that point you're still not comfortable enough for me to even give me a kiss, then that's a problem. And I don't want to wait around or continue to do this thing with you knowing that there's a possibility you may never get to that point. So I'm going to be out. I like how frank they have their conversations. I like that they seem very respectful of where each other stands when it comes to what they want and what they don't want. And I feel like they're also not judging each other for who they are at all. So I actually like them as separate people, and I don't even mind them as a couple at all. I think they complement each other very well. I think they treat each other very well. But again, her not being intimate or not even initiating things, at least I'm assuming she's not initiating things, that's a problem down the road. So I still don't have high hopes, and I still don't think they're going to make it. But it was just an interesting episode, and it allowed me to see more of Gil's personality, which I really liked. And we got to meet his dog. She's not a dog person, which is not her fault, and she shouldn't be forced to be a dog person either. So I actually couldn't fault her for that. I personally like dogs, but I know if I was on that show and, they paired me with someone who has, I don't know, I won't say a cat, because I make it very clear from the very beginning. I'm petrified of cats. Don't want no cats near me. I don't want to hear it. No, that's out of the question. But if they matched me with someone, for instance, who had a frog or had a ferret or something, I'm not an animal person. I'm not. And so dogs, I'm cool with. Any other animal, I'm either afraid of or I just don't want to be around it. So if my partner has a ferret and he expects me now to be the ferret's mommy and to do stuff with it, like play with it and feed and all this stuff, I'm not doing that. So I wasn't mad at her that she was like, I'm not walking the dog. Like, I'm not a dog person. I'm just really not. I was actually okay with her saying that last week. So I feel her on that. But yeah, I don't think they're bad people at all. I actually kind of like them as a couple in some ways, but I don't think it's going to work in the long run for them as husband and wife. Let's go to, Rachel and Jose. So I don't dislike Jose. However, I feel like, and this is coming from me, I feel like he's just a little too rigid and he's just a little too rigid. Pastor Kyle actually put it perfectly when he talked to both of them. He said Rachel, he said Jose is science and Rachel is art, which I thought was a beautiful explanation, and basically saying that Jose, with science and with math, there is one correct answer. There is a formula that you need to follow. There is a part A, B, C, D, E, and then you get the conclusion of the finale at F. Like, he understands that things happen in order. Where art, there are no rules. Everything's up for interpretation. It's very light and it's airy and it's fluid. And that doesn't mean that a person who is more art is necessarily like ditzy or doesn't have any structure, because she does have structure, but she's all about having that balance of having the structure and working hard, but also let's reward our hard work by having fun. And for Jose, I think he's not at that point yet. And I liked what Pastor Kyle told him. He was like, I don't want you to snuff out her fun. She's a fun person, and that's not a bad thing. Allow her to bring some fun into your life, as opposed to trying to change her to say, okay, well, no, we can't do those things because we need to blah, 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 blah. He's already thinking as a married person, like, no, we need to meet, put our finances together, and I saw that your car is a little old, so we need to replace the car, so that'll be the first thing on the list, and then we need to do this and that's that. Because she's like, oh, I would love to go to Switzerland, or I'd love to go to Africa, or I'd love to travel in the next year to go somewhere exotic. He immediately was like, no, that's too expensive. As opposed to thinking, okay, yes, this is an expensive trip. She's not saying let's drop everything and take every cent out of our account and go tomorrow. She's saying let's plan to go in the next year, meaning let's budget. Let's figure out the most, efficient way to do this. Let's look up flights now. Let's look up places to stay. Let's set aside some money each month to go towards this trip. So by the time the year passes, we already have a lot of money. We bought our tickets. We booked our places. And we're not in debt because we put aside money specifically for this. She's saying let's play as hard as we are working, which is not a bad thing to do at all. It's balance. But I think because Jose he has set goals in mind, right, financially, which is not a bad thing, but those goals were set while he was still a single person. Now, in his mind, he's setting these goals so that he can be in a good position financially for when he has a wife. That's fine, but that's still about him by himself. I need to be in a good position as a husband so that my wife is straight and I'm not bringing debt to her. Okay, but now that you're married, the two of you got to come up with your financial goals together. Collectively, what do you guys want to do? Collectively, what do you guys need to pay off? Collectively, what do you guys want to save for? And I don't know if he's in a position yet to do that. She made a comment because you visit him at his home, which is a really nice home, but it had a board, and this is part of his whole package too. He's very stringent and strict about his financial plan. So he has a board in his room, a whiteboard that lists all of his debt. It lists what he wants to save, all of his bills, like it's in plain sight, which I personally think is a little tacky to have it in plain sight in your home, but that's just my opinion. Either way, she saw it and she was like, I'm not as strict as he is. Mine is definitely not set up like that. And she made a comment in her talking head that I don't think I fit into his box financially. I took that comment and took off the word financially and just heard her say, I don't think I fit into his box, which I think is a lot more accurate. He's the one that had like over 200 questions he wanted to ask his future wife. He is the one that keeps talking about how I need all these boxes checked off before I can do A, B, and C. And I know that he has in his mind what kind of wife he believes that he wants, what kind of husband he plans to be, and what kind of marriage he ultimately wants. The problem with that is, especially in terms of the kind of marriage that you want, it's not just about what you want. You have to think about what kind of marriage she wants as well, and then you guys have to find some common ground in the middle. And because he is so much a stickler for these things, and he's been thinking about these things so hard, and he's been working so hard towards some of these things, I don't know how willing he's going to be to allow some of her joy and allow some of her fun stuff to be a part of the goals that he's already set and the life that he's already set, which again isn't fair because she's a part of your life now. So allow her the chance. Even when like looking at the home, he really wants her to move in to his house because he owns his house. It's really nice. He loves it. He's worked hard and blah, blah, blah. Now, most men's houses, when you look at it, you can clearly see like, oh, okay, this is nice, but I can see you need a woman's touch here, or you haven't really decorated this room. I could do something over here. His whole house is entirely decorated. He spent a lot of time thinking out how he wants his house to look. So because of that, if she does move in, I don't even see him allowing her to make the house her own. Because in his mind, well, everything has a function. I picked this house specifically for this. I did this for this. Da, 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 da. And it's like, if you want old girl to move in at some point, you need to make sure she feels welcome. That this is a blank canvas for her to not necessarily turn the house into what she wants, but to make it feel more like both of you have a part in this home as opposed to just her moving into your house. So I think that that's going to be a bit of an issue. That's going to be a little difficult in the future. I don't think Jose necessarily is controlling, not yet. We haven't seen signs of that yet. But I do think he is very clear on what he wants and doesn't want, which, again, is not bad. But I think that he isn't really factoring in his wife yet and factoring in what she wants and not trying to change, not trying to push his own opinion and his own desires on her, but actually listening to her and allowing her to have her peace. And so, I don't know. I not a huge fan of him as a husband, not necessarily for her specifically, but I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan of Jose. I don't dislike him, but he's not necessarily my favorite person. I don't think they're going to make it unless he loosens up a little bit. But time will tell. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. We'll see. Bao and Johnny. Johnny lost major cool points with me this episode, as I'm sure he did with you all as well. Because Johnny said some things I was like, "Yo, are you kidding me? Like, this is what we doing?" So they get home from the honeymoon. They go to this new apartment. One thing I was surprised about is that I thought that Muriel was going to be the one to complain about the apartment. Bao was the one who complained. Wasn't expecting that. And Johnny was just like, I'm just so overwhelmed. And they had like their first dinner in their apartment. He's like, so basically after this, I'm going to go back home. And, I just need to kind of clear my mind, just get away for a couple days, just to kind of gain some perspective. Because, the honeymoon was fun, but it was emotionally draining. It was just a lot. And I just need to process everything. Now, the problem with that is, I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with this. We are home. You got married at first sight to me 7 days ago. This is our home. So you saying I'm going home after this, no, boo, you are home. This is where we are now. Marriage, you can't get up and just run back home whenever things aren't working out. And I think that's why the experts always put the couples in a 2-bedroom apartment, so that if somebody does need space, they can go in that other bedroom, close the door, meditate, do whatever they need to do to get themselves together before they come back out and join their wife or their husband. And, it is key to have that space. I do understand that part, because going from being single, coming home whenever you want to, vegging out as soon as you get in the house, or just coming home and just like absorbing the quiet of your house before you get started making dinner or getting ready for the next day or whatever, all that stuff is crucial, and that's part of your routine. And it is a little disconcerting to go from that to now I'm coming home and somebody's there, or coming home and now I have to cook for somebody else, or coming home and my house isn't quiet like it normally is. That is a big transition, and I definitely get that. And I understand you wanting to even dissect and process everything that's happened. I get that as well. Not you getting up and leaving. And Bao handled it a lot better than I would have, because I would have been like, no, you are home. You don't understand. You don't get to leave. And it's because Johnny has had like 100 first dates, not really had any committed relationship in a really long time, so he doesn't know how this works. And Bao was like, I realize that I am more emotionally mature than he is when it comes to actual relationships. So while I get that he needs space, if he continues to leave, that's showing to me that he's not committed to this marriage. And she did say that to him. And my favorite thing about Bao and Johnny is that they are very, very good at communicating with each other respectfully. They don't raise their voice. They're not calling each other names. There's no accusations. It's just, this is how I feel. This is how what you said made me feel. And I just want to be upfront and honest with you and let you know that. So I appreciate their conversations all the time. But him leaving, I thought was some trash. I didn't appreciate it. It bothered me to no end. And I know it bothered Bao as well. So we'll skip over the fact, him seeing her apartment and her seeing his apartment, because that was just kind of whatever. Yeah, we saw apartments. We live like this. Whatever. When Pastor Cal came over and he's talking to both of them, Bao, one thing she said that I was confused about at first, because she was like, I feel like I'm always initiating touching you or initiating intimacy. And I was like, oh, also sidetrack, Jose and Rachel have had sex too. That happened. Jose and Rachel have had sex. But when Bao was like, I've always initiated physical touch, I was kind of confused. Like, wait a minute. In an earlier episode, Johnny said that his love language is physical touch, and she said that's definitely low for me, but I'll try to do better. So the fact that she's one always initiating, I thought was kind of a weird thing to say, because I didn't quite get it. So through Pastor Cal getting them to talk to each other, Johnny admitted that Johnny pissed me off, guys. He was like, when you get really excited, you get kind of giddy like a little kid, and it's very unattractive. And, so when you look at me and you want to kiss me, like, I kiss you, but it's more out of duty and less, with no passion. And she's like, yeah, I've noticed that. And he was like, yeah, it's just that it's a turn off when you get so, like, giddy and, like, childlike, basically. And then Pastor Cal was like, just kind of looking at him, not wanting to like get upset with him. And again, Bao is very controlled. Didn't get upset either, because at the end of the day, she's very big in communication. She likes the fact that you're honest and you're telling me what you want or what you don't want or what you like and don't like, and I'm appreciative of that. She kind of processes that first, and then she processes what was actually said. And Pascal asked her, like, how do you feel? And she was like, I feel very unattractive to him. Not unattractive in general. So I just feel unattractive to him, and it just makes me feel bad because I don't allow people to see that side of me that often. Just me having immense amount of joy, I don't get to show that side of me often. So showing it to a partner, I thought that I was in a safe space to do that. And one thing that bothered me is that on one hand, Johnny was saying, sometimes Bao's too in her head and sometimes I want her to live in the moment. Sometimes she's too serious. But then, like when she's extra happy either. So it's like, what do you want exactly, Johnny? And again, it has to do with the fact that he hasn't really had a committed relationship, so maybe he doesn't really know what he wants, or maybe he doesn't know how to articulate what he wants. But I was like, And then I thought some more about, again, the fact that he has a lot of commitment. I don't think he should have been on the show either. Not that he shouldn't be a husband at some point, but to go from having a bunch of first dates to immediately being somebody's husband, that's not a smart transition. There should have been something in the middle where you had some kind of long-term relationship where you learned what it meant to stay once you saw a couple red flags or a couple pink flags here and there, where you were with somebody for a year, 2 years, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. Then you can say, okay, I know what it means to be committed. Now I can be a husband. Not going from no commitment whatsoever to full-on commitment living with someone. That's a huge leap. And not having that middle ground or that middle experience is what I think is hurting him right now, because he is so used to running away and going back on the dating apps and just finding somebody else to date or whatever, that now when he's faced with things that don't necessarily feel right to him or faced with something that feels uncomfortable to him, he doesn't know how to stay. And granted, I can't necessarily blame him for that. But again, I think that's why he shouldn't have been on the show in the first place. He just wasn't ready for it. And Pastor Cal's advice to him was, I want you to be more giddy. He's like, is the problem that you have with her being giddy or whatever, that's definitely your problem. That is not her problem. And he basically told Bao, like, I don't want you to don't let him take your joy away. Don't stop yourself from being joyful and smiling and happy and silly. Don't snuff that part of you for anybody. But Johnny, you need to learn how to be maybe a little sillier to match her or whatever. I thought it was kind of weird advice, but I'm not a pastor and I'm not an expert on the show. But I don't know. For the first time, I think most people were like, I don't know about Bao and Johnny now. A lot of people, they've been their favorite couple for a while. And I think they do still have a lot of stuff in common. But I said, Johnny really left a bad taste in my mouth last night. I was really disappointed in the things he was saying and how he was handling things. But then again, I can't blame him because no one has taught him what it means to stay. He doesn't know how to stay and how to work things out. He doesn't know how to do that. So on one hand, I can't blame him. On the other hand, he pissed me off. I don't know how I feel. I'm so conflicted, you guys. But let's talk about Michaela and Zach. Now, I'll preface this by saying I think Michaela and Zach were both in the wrong. So what happened was Zach comes back, and we're not even going to talk about the whole time frame of this and how you're supposed to be quarantined for however many days. I think at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks haven't gone by since you've seen your wife, but we're not even going to talk about that. Maybe TV magic or whatever. Not going to talk about it. We're going to leave it alone. He comes to surprise her at her apartment with some roses and hugs her, and oh my gosh, I missed you, blah, 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 blah. I did find it kind of weird that in her apartment was a framed picture of the two of them that she took while they were on their honeymoon. Like that one day they were on their honeymoon. It was like a honeymoon or a wedding night or whatever. I did think it was kind of strange to have that in your apartment. Only because at this point, most couples don't have any pictures up of each other. They just recently got each other's phone numbers. It just seemed kind of weird to have that. And my mom was like, well, maybe it's because he was gone for so long. Like he was away from her for 8 days. I guess. I still thought that was kind of strange. And even her having a 1 week anniversary thing, like gift for him, it's like, that seems a little much as well. A little pushy, I think. But I could be, who knows? I could be wrong. It's fine. I definitely thought it was pushy, though. I'm going to stick with my opinion. I thought it was a little pushy. So they move into the apartment and their dogs meet each other. The dogs seem to like each other, which is always fun and, less drama and stress for everybody. So what happened is, at least this is the story from Zach's perspective. The first or second night that they moved into this apartment, 2-bedroom again, his dog is staying in the other bedroom, but I guess the dog's a little anxious being somewhere new, so Zach decides to stay in the room with the dog until the dog falls asleep. Then the plan was for him to let the dog go to sleep. Then Zach would join Michaela in their bedroom, and they would sleep together. Zach claims that he fell asleep in the dog's bedroom, so that's why he didn't come to Michaela. It wasn't intentional. He just fell asleep. When he woke up, it was time to take the dog to the daycare center, the dog sitter, or whatever. So when he left, it was about 7-something in the morning while Michaela was still asleep. She wakes up an hour later, doesn't see Zach in the house at all. She's obviously pissed off. She packs all of her stuff, her clothes and everything that she just brought to the apartment, and she leaves with all of her stuff. So what we see, because every apartment that is for Married at First Sight, you have actual camera people who are there during the day, but at night, and I guess in the early morning hours, they have cameras in the apartment to kind of show stuff that maybe the couples don't want to talk about on camera for whatever reason. So for that camera, we see Zach getting up at 7:15 in the morning, coming out of the bedroom, and then leaving with the dog. We see that. Michaela doesn't see that part. She just knows when she wakes up an hour later, the house is empty and he's gone. And I guess she also texted him and called him and he didn't answer or whatever. So they meet up to talk to Pastor Cal. He could tell she has an attitude. He's like, what's wrong? Like, I don't understand what's going on. So she blows up because she's like, you left. You said nothing, no text message, no this. You just rolled out, you left. He's like, is that why you took your stuff and left? She's like, yeah, because you just left and you didn't say anything. And he's like, explaining the situation, like I fell asleep, then I took it to the dog thing, and that's basically what happened. He's like, when I came back, you were gone, all your stuff was gone. I didn't know what was going on, whatever. So a couple issues here. Earlier in that episode, they had talked about, Zach asked her, I wonder what we're going to have our first argument about. How are you when you argue? Are you a type of person that walks away or leaves when you argue? She was like, no, I feel like that's emotionally abusive, so I don't walk away or I don't run away or whatever when I'm pissed off. But now you're showing yourself to be a hypocrite because as soon as he was not there and you're pissed, you pack all your stuff up and you left the apartment. So that's one. You're a hypocrite. 2, I know for me, if my husband has not come home, he's not answering his phone, he's not answering his text messages, my first reaction is not to be pissed off. My first reaction is to be worried. Oh no, I hope my husband's okay. All right, I'm going to give it a few more minutes and I'm going to call him back. I hope he's safe. Oh, it was getting really late outside. Like, I'm immediately, not scared necessarily, but I'm immediately concerned. Like, oh, I hope he's all right. The fact that Michaela's first inclination was to be pissed off, as if he intentionally did this, I thought was very strange. That's your very first reaction is to be upset. And it almost implies that he's done this before, but he hasn't, because you guys have been separated for 8 days. So you don't know him well enough to know if this is something that he does. So the fact that she immediately jumped to that conclusion means she's bringing in past stuff from past relationships. She's bringing that into her current situation, which is always a dangerous thing to do. Zach is not any of your ex-boyfriends. He shouldn't be punished for anything that they've done. That's 2. 3, Zach was definitely in the wrong for not telling her anything. But in his somewhat defense, I've been married now almost 8 years, and I still have to remind my husband sometimes, like, yo, you need to let your wife know when you're going out. Not saying you got to tell me, hey, I'm going out with this person at this time, this is the address. None of that, but just be like, babe, just to let you know, I'm going out with my friends tonight. Okay, so I know not to expect you. I know not to get worried if it's really late. I know, okay, you out, I'll see you in the morning. That's fine with me. But again, sometimes he forgets, just genuinely forgets to let me know certain things. And we've been married for 8 years. So for Zach, who has been married for 8 days or 9 days at this point, it is a learned behavior to remember to check in with the person you are married to. Again, They're getting married at first sight. They're not dating at first sight and then dating for months and years and then getting married. So now you had those months and those years to get used to checking in with someone. You're getting married at first sight. So that's a learned behavior. And again, after almost 8 years of marriage, my husband still forgets sometimes to call me or text me when he's going to be out. So that's something that people tend to forget. So I never thought that Zach did that intentionally, but I do put that on him that, hey, you need to remember to send her a note or something to say that you went to the dog park or whatever and you're coming back. That's all. It's very simple, very plain. The reason why I'm upset with Zach is because when she explained why she was pissed off at him, he didn't say, I'm sorry. He didn't say that'll never happen again. He didn't acknowledge her feelings because he was so consumed with the fact that she was indicating that he did this on purpose, that he was intentionally trying to be mean, that he was intentionally trying to leave her. That's what he focused on. And it was in that moment that I realized one of the reasons that they were matched. They are both high-strung emotionally. We already knew that Zach was emotional because leading up to the wedding, he was crying a lot. So I think a lot of people assumed that he was going to be really sensitive and that she's going to be able to walk all over him. Last night, I think, kind of disputed that myth. He wasn't being walked over, but he definitely was very, just like she immediately went to being pissed off, like within 2 seconds, he immediately went to being very defensive and agitated and irritated very, very quickly. And I think that, A, that shows how similar they are. B, that could be recipe for disasters. Having two people who are so highly emotional and so quick to get to those emotions and quick to jump to those conclusions, having them married, and they're going to do this a lot. So I think it was the first glimpse of how dangerous that can be. When Pastor Cal came, he's talking to them about it, and obviously being an expert, he's able to get to the heart of what things are. He's able to hear the underlying message, whereas Zach and Michaela are only hearing what each other are saying, and they're not even really hearing that well. So Pastor Cal was letting him know she's upset because when her dad died, that was her protector, her provider. So now as the husband, she sees you in that role being protector and provider. And since her dad has passed away, she's still harboring feelings of abandonment almost. So when you left and you did not come back, or you didn't let her know you were coming back or whatever, in her mind, she immediately felt abandoned. She immediately felt sad. She immediately felt angry because she felt she was being abandoned all over again. Now, granted, that's not fair to put that on Zach. Zach is not supposed to be her father. He's not supposed to be replacing her father, which is like a whole nother video that I could probably do, but I'm not going to go there because I'm not an expert. So I'm not fully equipped to really delve into that necessarily. But I understand what Pastor Cal was saying. And again, I was glad Pastor Cal was there, because if he wasn't, they would have just been going back and forth until Zach eventually walked out. Because he was like, I don't even want to talk about this anymore. I feel like we're going around in circles. But again, I got pissed off because he never said he was sorry. So granted, she should have never left. That was a cowardly, trifling thing to do. She should have never left that man just because he didn't come home. However, she's still expressing, I was upset because you did this. Listen to why she was upset. Acknowledge that what you did was wrong. And then tell yourself and tell her, you know what, you're absolutely right. This is a first for me. I've never lived with anybody, and I've never had to answer to anybody before. But you're right. I should have left a note. I should have left you a text message. I didn't want to wake you up, but you're right. I could have at least left a note somewhere in the kitchen or something to tell you where I was. I'm sorry, and I'll make an effort to make sure that doesn't happen again. Be patient with me. That's all you had to say, and she would have been like, okay. But instead, you focus on her attitude, and you focus on how she was pretty much calling you a liar and calling all this stuff. So he focused on that because he takes the fact that he's a very genuine person, he takes that very seriously. So her attacking his character is what set him off. So now he's at this level of being pissed off that he wasn't before, and she's already past the point of being pissed off, and now you guys got to sit down with the pastor and hash this whole thing out. So the whole conversation, I thought, went left in a lot of different ways. It makes you not have faith in them. But again, it's if they can learn how to listen to each other, like really, really listen to each other, listen to the underlying message behind what each other is saying, then I think they could be okay. But last night was not very hopeful last night. So my predictions, I think Zach and Michaela, just based off last night. I won't even go based off of history. Just based off last night's episodes, period. Zach and Michaela will not make it. Brett and Ryan will make it. Val and Johnny will not make it. Gil and Mirla will not make it. And Jose and Rachel will not make it. Just based off last night. So I think I'll do that every episode. I'll just focus on what happened last night and just kind of go from there. But I hope you guys enjoyed the review and recap. This season, this episode wasn't boring for once. I was very happy about that. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the season, but I will be with you every step of the way to talk about these crazy couples who made this crazy decision. But I hope you guys have a wonderful, marvelous day, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.